Hi, this is Lyndall with Watery Wishes, and today I have a Christmas card set. Now to start, I stamped out and coloured some images from Simon Says Stamps Winter Flowers, but you could easily draw these holly leaves, berries and the flame yourself. And because I was fussy cutting them out, I didn't have to worry about going over the lines. Now I've cut this panel using an antique frame die, and it is 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. And now I'm placing out everything so I know where that flame's going to be, so I can place a dot on the panels and give myself a starting point for where I'm going to start ink blending, just in case the sponge makes a bit of a mess when I first put it down. But these finger daubers are pretty good. Now as you can see, I'm just circling that out, trying to get a decent circle, and I'm coming from the center mainly because that little bit will be darkest behind that, where that flame's going to be. I'm laying a lot of ink down on these circles, and they don't have to be perfect, they just have to be fairly inky. And I'm going to go through and do the same thing on all 10 panels at once. It's just easier to do it repetitiously. And for this, you just need to get down a decent amount of ink on the card. Now I'm using the oxides for this, and there is a reason why I'm using the oxides for this. And I mean, you could use the inks, or you could use any sort of ink to do this, but the oxides give a really good glowy look at the end when it's all blended, and it was sort of that look I was going for. Now I started off with a finger dauber. I move on to a blending tool for the red, simply because it's just easier to cover large spaces. Now this is going to look extremely messy, and that's okay. It sort of comes together, and being messy is sort of, you don't want these colors to blend yet perfectly with these tools, and I will blend them, but I'll do it with the finger dauber after I've laid down some of this red. Now for most of this card I'm doing individual steps for each of the panels, but this step I lay down the red and then I do the blending with the yellow, because I want that red still a little bit wet. I don't want it to set with those harsh lines. So this is where the magic happens. You get the yellow and you blend on those harsh lines, and because they're the red's so strong and the yellow's so vibrant and light, you get this real orange white light glow around, and when it dries it looks absolutely stunning, and exactly like a candle glow would look like. So for obvious reasons I'm not going to show you the steps 10 times for every step. I'll show you a couple for each. And as you can see, I'm just laying on a lot of that red colour. This is where the oxides come in really handy too. They are really easy to get really good deep coverage with. So as you can see, they're all a little bit different, all a little bit individual. And I am getting a little bit of that red ink on my squeezed lemonade pad, but it's just easy to wipe off after you've finished. Now, I cut down these candle strips to 2 1/4 by 1 inch, and I have taped with a little bit of washi. I took apart one of my twines that had a white bit in it, and I used that to tape down the wick on the back with washi, and I shaded the edges with some grey Copic markers. But you don't need to use Copic markers. You could use pencils, you could use charcoal, you could use anything to do that. Now, I've also cut down 10 black panels of Simon Says Stamp black cardstock, and I've got 10 card bases of Nina 110 pound. For this first candle, I'm adhering it down, and then I'm going to adhere the flame just to make sure that I've got all my placement right while the glue is still wet, so I can just shift things and slide things around before it sets if I don't. And I'll use this as a reference for adhering the rest of the candle pieces. And I'll do the rest of the flames after I've done all the candle pieces. I just find it's quicker to do each step repetitively and then move on to the next one and do that repetitively, especially when you're doing a few of the same type of card. There I go, just putting the candles on. And then once all the candles have dried, I'll come back and adhere all the flames, which is actually a petal or a leaf stamp from that stamp set. It's not meant to be a flame, but it worked perfectly. And as I said, you could actually draw these shapes yourself and colour them in. And the beauty about these leaves is they're sketchy and they don't have to be absolutely perfect. And doing 10 of these at the same time, I mean, it did take me around an hour and a half to do all the colouring, all the ink blending, all the paper cutting, like the fussy cutting and the cutting out the candles. But I had 10 cards, so it's definitely an investment worth your time. I'm actually giving this set away to a family friend to send to all her friends for Christmas. And I'm sorry about being off camera here. I'm laying out and sticking down the holly leaves, and as you can see, I've sort of grouped them into threes. So they have 2 of one type and 1 of the other. And the berries are all different sizes, so I'm sort of trying to get 1 large one and 2 smaller ones. There's like a medium and a small, but they're really close to the same size. And then I'm gluing those down. And here is what it'll look like against the black panel, and then that black panel will take up the whole card front. So with the holly leaves, I sort of just, the first 2 on the bottom I did sort of like on a straight line, sort of one opposing the other, and then I just put the third one at an angle up from the center. And then just glue the berries in the center of those, and each card has 3 berries. So once I'd got all those done and dry, then I just adhere these panels to the panels of black cardstock. And before I did the ink blending with the oxides, I made sure that I had every panel like cut the same way. Now, you don't have to use one of those antique frame dies. You could just use a regular rectangle die. It's just I don't own a large regular rectangle die set because I usually just cut my cardstock out. But you could also just cut your cardstock out. It doesn't have to be a fancy rectangle die. I've come to the realization that liquid glue just hates me. I always have so much trouble trying to get it out of the bottles. But I do prefer the way it adheres for panels like this, because when you use a dry adhesive like score tape or even some tape runners, it's not so easy to correct your mistakes, but with a wet glue you can slide the cards around slightly. Make sure everything's perfectly centered and the angles are right. Now, I don't think I got footage of me putting these onto the card bases, but I'm pretty sure you know what that's like. Now, this is the fun bit. This is where I got some white Nuvo drops and I'm using them to create a wax drip from the top of the candle. And because I'm putting them on top of the oxides, they will draw up a little bit of that yellow underneath them, just on the edges, and it will make the Nuvo drops look like they have a reflected yellow glow from the flame. When you do this, you just want to make sure that you go over the edge and slightly onto the card underneath. And they don't all have to be the same. They don't have to be perfect. See here, I'm just going in to make sure that it gets on the card so I get like that smooth rounded look on the top, and that'll also help it draw up a bit of that colour from underneath. And as you can see, now that the candles are all adhered down, that white soft glowiness of the oxide sort of lends itself really well to the impression of a candle glow. Now, I went in and I put some glossy accents on the berries after the Nuvo drops had dried. And I did create a box for these to go into, though I'm not showing that in this video. There I always squeeze my Nuvo out onto a scrap piece of paper. Well, not my Nuvo, anything. My Nuvo and my glossy accents out onto a piece of cardboard to make sure it's sort of flowing. There was a little bit there, and I figured why let it go to waste? I'll just put it on some of the berries. Have you ever noticed how inky, paint stained my hands are during these videos? But they get that way by having crafty fun, so I'm not too worried about it. So they are the finishing touches to the cards, and here is a screen grab of when they were drying, and here are the photos. If you liked the video, hit that like button. If you disliked it, hit the dislike button. If you did like it, I would love if you subscribed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. And don't forget, have fun crafting your imagination. Bye.